Once upon a time, there was a donkey named Joe.
He lived in the small town of Meadowfield.
Joe was not like the other animals. He wanted more in life than to just spend his days grazing and munching away on hay all day long. Joe liked to read books, think deeply, and ponder about the world outside of the cozy farm in which he lived. One bright summer morning, Joe decided that he would try and make his dreams come true. As he began walking away from the farm, he saw a flock of birds flying over the horizon and felt his heart stirred with a sense of daring adventure. He smiled and began to trot faster along the winding dirt path, filled with excitement and anticipation of the unknown. Joe soon arrived at the edge of a large forest, much larger than anything he had ever seen before. Planting himself firmly at the entrance, he surveyed the thick blanket of trees that stretched far and wide, wondering what kind of mystery lay in wait for him within its depths. Taking a deep breath, he marched forward resolutely, determined to explore the unknown and see what wonders it held. As he ventured forth, Joe encountered many strange and wonderful creatures such as deer, foxes, and even an occasional rabbit. He also discovered several streams of clear, cool water that ran through the tall grass and dark trees, providing him with much-needed refreshment after hours of walking. But most excitingly of all, he noticed he wasn't alone in the forest. At first, Joe thought it was a noise he heard rustling nearby, but upon further inspection, he realized that it was another talking animal, a smart and witty raccoon. The raccoon introduced himself as Ralph and greeted Joe with a friendly smile and a warm handshake. After a brief conversation, Ralph asked if Joe would like to join him for some mischief-making in the forest. How could Joe resist? He eagerly accepted the invitation, and soon the two of them were off, joyfully exploring the nooks and crannies of the mysterious forest. They jumped around from tree to tree, played hide and seek among the leaves, chased each other around bushes, and laughed wholeheartedly together.
It was the most fun Joe has ever had in his whole life.
Suddenly, their playful activities attracted the attention of a huge eagle soaring above them. The eagle flew down, landing gracefully near the pair, and spoke to them in a booming voice. He asked why they weren't spending their days doing something useful, and told them stories of his own amazing search for knowledge. Listening attentively, Joe was completely enthralled by the wise eagle's words. Inspired, the two companions bade farewell to the eagle, thanked him for the advice, and set off to find some way to fulfill their dreams. After much searching, they eventually stumbled across an ancestral tree that had been passed down for many generations by local farmers. According to legend, this tree had magical powers and could grant wishes to those brave enough to touch it. Joe and Ralph quickly ran towards the tree, ready to start a new journey of adventure and discovery. As they reached out their hands, Joe noticed a glimmering light emanating from the trunk of the tree, and suddenly they found themselves transported to an entirely different place. Joe stared in awe at the vibrant colors of plants and flowers, feeling completely captivated by the beauty of the land. The land seemed to stretch out endlessly, and Joe and Ralph could hardly contain their excitement as they trekked onward. After countless hours of wandering, they soon arrived at a bridge that crossed into a small village. Curious about the inhabitants of the village, Joe and Ralph decided to visit and introduce themselves. When they arrived at the village, Joe and Ralph were welcomed by the locals with open arms. They shared stories and taught each other about their cultures and beliefs. Joe, in particular, learned about the importance of hard work and perseverance, and felt deeply inspired by the values the villagers stood for. As the sun began to set, Joe and Ralph thanked the villagers for their hospitality and retired for the night in an old barn. As they settled in and looked up at the star-filled sky, they both knew that they were finally on the right path to fulfilling their dreams. Early the next morning, Joe and Ralph awoke bright and early, ready to continue their journey. After a hearty breakfast, they bid farewell to the villagers and crossed the bridge once again, brimming with enthusiasm and determination. However, it soon became clear that their luck was beginning to run out. With no food or water left, the two started to grow weary and disheartened. But then, just when it seemed they'd have to turn back, a miracle occurred. Out of nowhere, a carpenter appeared, riding atop a magnificent horse. The carpenter informed the duo that he was travelling to the next town and offered them a ride if they would help him carry his goods. Eager to reach the town and find rest and sustenance, the two happily obliged. As they rode, Joe and Ralph told the carpenter about their aspirations, and the carpenter was very moved.
He gifted the duo a compass so that they could safely guide themselves on their new journey.
Joe and Ralph bowed gratefully, deeply thankful for the kindness shown by the stranger, and carried on following the direction of the compass. Eventually, Joe and Ralph arrived at a bustling city filled with people, cars, and lights. Everywhere they looked, they saw excitement, opportunity, and life. Humbled by the sights, they looked at each other in awe, realizing they had finally made it. Tired but fulfilled, the two decided to settle down in the city and opened a shop selling items they had collected on their travels.
As business began to pick up, the duo soon developed many loyal customers.
Everyone was enchanted by their charm, humor, and intelligence, and visited their store frequently to enjoy a chat. Life in the city brought Joe and Ralph much joy and fulfillment, but they still yearned for adventure occasionally. So whenever time allowed, the duo would take off on mini adventures here and there, traveling to distant places and learning about different customs and cultures. Over the years, Joe and Ralph learned much about the world and themselves, but one thing remained the same: their friendship. Whenever things got tough or their dreams seemed too far out of reach, the two stuck together and encouraged each other, becoming better friends and wiser individuals in the process. Now, Joe and Ralph live happily in the city, reminding anyone who listens to never stop believing in themselves, because dreams can and do come true. So remember, don't be discouraged by the obstacles, and let your imagination be the compass that guides you on the journey ahead, wherever it may lead you.